What if the young people we are trying to help are actually the leaders we should be developing? I'm loving this topic already. Get my volume up. Okay. Too often, youth and young adults are viewed through the lens of their challenges. We talk about poverty, educational barriers, workforce readiness gaps, community violence, mental health challenges. But what if we shifted the conversation? What if we started talking about leadership potential, advocacy capacity, community influence, systems change? Hmm. Good morning and welcome to Disrupting Poverty Through Leadership That Delivers Results AM Talk Show. I'm your host, Dr. Tekemia Dorsey, and today we're focusing on one of the most important investments we can make: developing strategic advocacy efforts that empower youth and young adults to become poverty informed leaders in their own lives and communities. Boom, tap that. Today's episode is titled Empowering the Next Generation: Strategic Advocacy, Poverty Informed Leadership, and Agenda 2030 in Action. Agenda 2030 calls upon us to create a world where opportunity is expanded, inequity, inequality is reduced, and sustainable development benefits everyone. This discussion aligns directly with SDG 1, no poverty, and SDG stands for Sustainable Development Goals. SDG 4, quality education. SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. SDG 10, reduce inequalities. SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And SDG 17, partnerships for the goals. But achieving these goals requires something often overlooked: youth leadership. Because young people are not simply future stakeholders, they are current stakeholders. And many have lived experiences that provide valuable insight into the barriers community face every day. Let's begin by understanding what poverty informed leadership really means. Poverty informed leadership recognizes that economic hardship affects more than finances. Poverty informed leadership that recognizes that economic hardship affect more than finances influences educational experiences, healthcare outcomes, employment opportunities, housing stability, mental health, and community engagement. Recently a young adult who experienced housing instability throughout high school struggled academically. Sounds familiar, right? Yet, through mentorship and leadership development opportunities, they became a student advocate, helping shape support programs for others. Let me flip my hair. Not liking it on the other side. Work with me. They experienced their experience, lived experience became leadership expertise. Poverty informed leadership recognizes that lived experience is valuable knowledge. By the way, Some institutions of higher education award degrees based on curriculum that evolves around lived experiences through work. Young people who understand barriers often have unique insights into solutions. Really, they do because they're living it every single day. But we do recognize that awareness alone is not enough. Youth need advocacy skills before they graduate high school. Many young people are told, and we've often told them as parents, as those that are leading programs on a job in the community, they should work hard, stay focused, get involved, right? But rarely are they taught how systems work. They're not, for sure, because most adults don't understand how systems work, right? How decisions are made, how policies impact communities. I think that is the biggest of this list thus far. And how to advocate effectively. Okay, that is the biggest one in this list thus far. Strategic advocacy, intentional advocacy includes research, hands down. We should be not quoting our best friend or the latest rapper or the one that got the highest Instagram or YouTube followers. That's not research, right? Communication. Strategic advocacy also include coalition building. Strategic advocacy include public speaking, giving them the mic in elementary school, hands down needed, everybody, even the quiet ones. Strategic advocacy include community organizing, which is hella hard for adults, but imagine if youth can do it. And guess what? They can because they all speak the same language. Smiling emoji, laughing emoji, brick heart emoji. I don't know. It's just an emoji thing, right? And strategic advocacy includes relationship development. Man, these should all be principles in a course K-12, right? A group of students identified transportation barriers affecting after school participation. And it's real. But instead of simply complaining, they gathered information, research, presented their concerns, advocacy, and proposed solutions. Boom. Leadership listened. Kudos to that leadership team. And changes followed, right? Because advocacy is most effective when it combines passion with preparation. That could be an adult course too, right? For sure. And advocacy becomes even more powerful when young people understand systems. How deep are we going today? Okay, let's go a little deep. It is 6 o'clock in the morning, right? Many people recognize problems every day. To some people, waking up is a problem. Who they wake up with is a problem. What they have on waking up is a problem. Who's not next to them is a problem. But not waking up is the biggest problem. Anyway, but leaders learn how to analyze systems, right? Many people recognize problems. Leaders learn how to analyze systems. And when youth encounter challenges, we encourage them to ask, what is causing the issue? But for some youth, that's even hard because they're like, oh, well, we encourage them to ask who is impacted with them, beyond them, around them, after them, right? Who makes decisions? Who is the head person in charge that can put the pen to the paper and move mountains? What partnerships are needed? And this is the critical part. Youth and young adults don't think in terms of partnerships. They think in terms of good old girl, good old boy, homies. Those aren't partnerships. Those are like abilities. Those are similarities. Those are vibes, not partnerships. So, what partnerships are needing? Having them to help shift that mindset into partnerships versus who I get along with versus I don't like what tennis shoes they got on is vital. And what long term solutions exist? And that's a critical matter. You can see what's in front of them, right? And they can also see long term. But it's the long term that has to continue to be nurtured and navigated and worked on, right? You know, a young leadership group examined food insecurity in their community. Love it. Because that's something that adults are looking at in today's time. But instead of solely focusing on food distribution, they explored with help economic factors, very important, transportation barriers, always an issue, community resources, they're surrounded by daily, and workforce challenges. Absolutely an out of the box thinking topic. And their recommendations became stronger because they understood the larger systems, how transportation, community, workforce, and economic all come together as a holistic topic, right? And effective leaders look beyond systems to root causes. But we can't stop there. Mentorship plays a critical role in leadership development. It should say effective, or I should say effective mentorship plays a critical role in leadership development. Well, you know what? Mentorship at any point can be effective, right? All right. Because no leader develops alone. None. Youth need mentors, youth need coaches, youth need community leaders, youth need educators, youth need advocates, and youth need parents, guardians, role models, any of the above that they look up to. Recently, we had a young community volunteer that was encouraged by mentor to attend public meetings and leadership events. Best thing ever. Get them out, get them informed, get them engaged. That exposure opened doors to opportunities that they never imagined. Years later, they became mentoring, they began to mentor others themselves. Leadership development is a responsibility shared across generations. No matter how old, how young, how black, how white, how English speaking versus another fluent language speaking, how wide your eyes are, how dark your skin is, how big your nose is, or how both top your lips might be. Doesn't matter. A leadership development is the responsibility of shared generations that are born daily. And Agenda 2030 requires partnerships that intentionally include youth voices. Agenda 2030 emphasizes inclusion. As I think most of the world would agree, but inclusion must be intentional. We got to kind of sometimes go out of our way to go look for what we need that's not right in front of us. And a great example are nonprofit boards, right? Or a CEO start or executive director or founder starting a nonprofit. It's easy to grab your homies, your girls, your ace boomba, your boo thing, but it's hard to really strategically align people that your board needs for the community you serve. So oftentimes, all the time, you should be intentional in who you are going out for and why. But back to young people. Inclusion must be intentional for them, right? Young people should have opportunities that allow them to participate in planning discussions, serve on advisory groups, contribute to community initiatives, shared live experiences, and help shape solutions. I know for my youngest two, or actually all of my children, they served on advisory groups. They served on, they created their own organizations. They are CEOs and business owners. They've served on, they've led in the county, through the youth leadership groups, because I wanted them to understand that their voices matter, and that regardless of their age, that if presenting themselves the right way, people will listen. And it worked. It wasn't always peaches and cream, but we put the time in and it worked, and it continues to pay off. Community often make decisions for youth without engaging youth. That approach limits innovation and perspectives, and it make you feel as if their voices aren't important and their voices aren't being heard. That's a problem in today's culture. Well, any culture, but especially today's culture. Sustainable development becomes stronger when youth help design the future they will inherit. We won't be here. They will. Okay. And finally, let's discuss how we create a culture of leadership for them. Communities that invest in youth leadership today create stronger leaders tomorrow. That's true. Think about it like succession planning in a business or a nonprofit or a volunteer organization. It's no different. We're just starting the investment earlier than 40. Leadership pipelines should focus on advocacy, hands down, civic engagement, workforce readiness, financial literacy, public speaking, systems thinking, community service. By the way, I have a book in every one of these areas, volume 2, 3, and 1. Yes. The goal is not simply preparing young people for jobs, because that's not enough. And why is it not enough? Because most adults, even those that are working for federal in the federal government, have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 extra jobs or side hobbies. They're like the federal job Jamaica man or woman. So preparing young people for jobs is not enough, because they don't want an entry job they can't elevate and grow in. They want a job that they can grow in and it can become a career. And guess what? They got to advocate. They got to understand what systems are. They got to engage, workforce readiness, balance their money through financial literacy, and the list goes on and on. So the goal is preparing them for leadership, not just jobs. And communities rise when leaders are intentionally developed. Don't you think? But let's bring this into action. Here is your leadership challenge. Mentor one young person within the next 30 days. I know for me, it's my kids every day, and then their besties, and then my adopted nieces and nephews. And so, yeah, adopt one young person within the next 30 days. And if you don't have access to one, start with your neighborhood, start with your own kids, start with their friends, right? Create opportunities for youth voices within your organization or community. Oh, that is real easy. Just ask them what they think and carve out 2 hours, right? Because then they're going to bring their friends in and give you a whole plethora of what they're thinking, right? Teach one advocacy skill to a young person you know. I absolutely love this, right? Because oftentimes youth voices being heard could be interpreted as sassy, grown, smart, rude, boisterous, disrespectful. And I don't disagree with that. However, if we train them to strategically understand the difference, then they're learning to advocate and not be any of those other things. And even adults today have a problem with not what they say, but how they say it. So imagine if we can teach youth advocacy, presenting it in the right way and not the misinterpreted way. Could it still go wrong? Yes, because that's the difference between sender and receiver communication 101. However, at least 80% of the time, it will be interpreted the correct way, not interpreted, but received the correct way because how they are presenting themselves and they've been trained. Teach one advocacy skill to a young person you know. Boom, mic drop. Don't got a mic, but I'll drop my keys. Yep, let's move on. And another leadership challenge is encourage youth to move from awareness to action. Man, that was a challenge, a leadership challenge I gave my adult listeners a few episodes ago. Now let's strategically and intentionally train the young leaders of today to do the same thing, move from awareness to action. But here's the caveat today: don't tell them, show them, teach them. And we're moving from theory to practical application because if they knew how to do it, they would need to be trained. And if they knew how to do it, then adults wouldn't be so screwed in the world today. Some of them, anyway. But anyway, encourage youth to move from awareness to action. Because here's the truth: the next generation does not need to be rescued, y'all. They don't. We need to be rescued. No, I'm joking. They don't need to be rescued. They need to be equipped with the right things, with the right tools, with the right intentional strategic variables. That's what they need. And when we develop poverty informed leaders who understand systems, advocacy, and community impact, we create stronger communities, stronger institutions, and a stronger future. Yep. All this is my intellectual property, y'all. So if this episode inspired you, follow Disrupting Poverty Through Leadership That Delivers Results AM Talk Show on YouTube for now. Share one strategy for empowering youth leaders in your community. Go back, rewind, listen, take down some of the tips provided, or create your own. Share, tag a young leader, mentor, educator, advocate, or organization investing in the next generation. Because Agenda 2030 will not be achieved by today's leaders alone. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. It will be achieved, though, by leaders who intentionally develop today. It will be achieved by the leaders we intentionally develop today for tomorrow. And we know that tomorrow isn't promised. So we cannot wait 5 to 10 years to help our youth to young adults develop into the leaders that we need them to be, because tomorrow could be too late. Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful episode of my AM Morning Talk Show podcast. Hit that subscribe button, rewind, download, send to your neighbors in your network. Go back and take notes. Listen to the audio on the way to work, on the way home. Challenge yourself with these leadership challenges. Drop a note below how things are going. Are you doing the leadership challenges? Is it forcing you to think differently, think differently, behave differently? Are you familiar with Agenda 2030? If not, all of the above should be achieved today or in the next 48 hours. Until the next episode, thank you so very much. Truly appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you on the other side, God willing. Peace out.